We'll see today the introduction part, like why we need to go for Selenium and why using with Java. So why we actually go for automation, testing automation and all those things today, and how this Selenium has emerged. What is the history of Selenium? All those things we'll cover today. And from the next sessions, from tomorrow sessions, we'll start with basics of Java. Okay, so let's get started. So why we need to go for automation? Anyone who are working in testing? Like, see, for any development, if you want to develop any product, we have to follow certain methodology. Like initially, we followed waterfall model. Like at once, we'll collect all the requirements from the client. Whatever the requirements they give, we will collect all of them at once. And once we receive those requirements, we will start developing the product. And once the product is developed, that will be moved to the testing. Once the testing is done, we'll move it to production. So this was the process. Like initially, we collect the requirements only once. Once we collect, we start developing the product. Once we develop, it will be moved to testing. And once the testing is done, it will be moved to production. This was the process. This we call it as waterfall model. Only once we do everything. But now we follow the agile methodology. That means collecting the requirements, gathering the requirements is not a one-time job. Continuously, we collect the requirements from the client, we start developing it, and once it is developed, we move the code to the testing. Once the testing is done, we continuously move the updates to the production. Like if I can say one small example, like we are using, I think everyone is now aware of WhatsApp. So whatever WhatsApp we are using today and how it has been developed at the initial stage, there is a lot of change. First, when we started using the WhatsApp, it was different. Like what was the purpose of it? Like sending the messages, updating the DP. So these are the basic things that WhatsApp has provided at the initial phase. But today, it has been improved a lot of updates have been added to WhatsApp. Like lot of smileys have been added. You can do the payment, you can update the status. So there are a lot of changes for the initial version of WhatsApp and now today what we are using. That means client continuously starts giving the requirements. They start, so once whatever they have developed, they are not satisfied with that initially developed one. On top of it, they start giving the updates. And for every update, we need to develop the updates, and we need to test the entire system and again move the updates to the production. So this is a continuous process. The client continuously give the requirements, give the updates to us. We need to develop that, and and that has to be moved to testing, and finally that upgraded version has to be moved to the production. So this is a continuous process. So this type of developing a product, we call it as agile methodology. Continuously, there will be any one or the other change, and we have to move it to the production after testing. So this is a continuous process. This type of developing a product, we call it as agile methodology. Is it clear what is agile methodology? Okay. So in this agile methodology, whenever there is a upgrade version, so we need to test the entire system completely. So the already existing system we need to test, and when we add new features to it, that part also we need to test. So every time whenever there is a change, we continuously do the testing. That type of testing, we call it as regression testing. That means whenever there is a change, whenever there is an upgrade, we have to test the entire system, already existing system, And whatever change we are adding to the existing system, that also we need to change. We need to test. So this type of testing, we call it as regression testing. So in order to perform this manually, it is very difficult for us. Every time when there is a change, we have to test the entire system and also the new thing, new feature which we have added. So to do this manually, it is very difficult for us. So what we have done, then we started going for automating the testing process. Every time there is a new requirement, we need to develop it and we need to test the entire system if it is working fine or not, because already existing system, we should not disturb it, it should work. Along with that, we are adding a new feature to it, to the existing system. So it should not break the existing system. Whatever change we have developed, it should not break the existing system. So all these things we need to test. This type of testing, we call it as regression testing. And to do that regression testing manually, it is very difficult process in agile methodology. So that is why we go for automating the testing process. Is it clear, all of you?
Yes, please.
Okay. And moreover, it's a human tendency that we may, suppose if I have 200 test cases to test, there is a chance that as humans, we may forget one or two scenarios. So that is the reason we go for, that is one of the other reason that we go where we go for automating the testing process. Is these 2 points clear to all of you? What is regression testing? What is agile methodology? Okay. Now I have listed few of testing types here. There are other types as well. I have listed most frequently used ones. So these are different types of testings which we regularly see them. So we'll discuss one by one. What is accessibility testing? Accessibility testing is nothing but whenever we are developing a product, it should be accessible by everyone. Suppose if I'm half blinded or visually in challenged person, I cannot see the font which is low. Like see, let me share it again. One second. Vishnu, are you there? Vishnu,
Yes, ma'am.
um, have you logged in with Prudence of Soul?
No, ma'am. I'm logged with Vishnu only.
Okay. Okay. No problem. One second. Are you able to see them? Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Suppose I am writing the font like this. Example. Suppose I am writing the font like this. So the people who are half blinded or aged people who cannot see it, who cannot see the font at this level. So I should not develop my application in that way. So I should develop an application in such a way that whatever font or colors, whatever, however I am developing my application, look and feel, UI. everything should be accessible by all kinds of people. Even for aged people, they should be able to access. Even visually challenged people, they should be able to access everything. So there is a difference between this font and this font, and whatever colors I'm using to develop my application, it should be in such a way that it is accessible by everyone. So that type of testing, whatever I do in order to make sure that whatever application I have developed is accessible by everyone or not, that type of testing we call it as accessibility testing. Is it clear, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. The next type of testing is acceptance testing. See, whatever product I have developed, suppose client gave me a requirement to develop a pen. I have developed a pen and I do the testing from my end, but the client is not satisfied. Whatever, whoever I have developed the product, they cannot say that whatever I have developed is correct. So what does he do? He go to the third person and give that pen to them and ask them to test. So he gives the requirement. I have asked the team to develop a pen, and he will ask the third person if everything, if all the requirements are not met or not. So he goes to the developed person will be one team, and testing team will be different team. In order to make sure whatever the product has been developed, it has been uh, developed in a proper way or not, whatever the requirements are met or not. So that type of testing we call it as acceptance testing. The developed team will not do the testing, the third person will do the testing, and once they say that the developed product is exactly what the requirement is, then the client will accept it. That type of testing we call it as acceptance testing. Is it clear, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now the next one is black box testing. This testing we For this testing, whoever is testing, they'll not be aware of code and everything. Assume that you are in front of a black box and you are not able to see whatever is available inside that box. Just by seeing the outer surface of the box, whatever testing that you can do, that we call it as black box testing. Suppose like I can say logging in, sign in page. So if you give incorrect username or incorrect password, i- so in that case also, if you are able to log in, that is a blunder. So that type of testings, whatever we do, without knowing what the code is, that we call it as black box testing. Without knowing the code and what it is, whatever testing that you do, that we call it as black box testing. The next one is functional testing. Functional testing is nothing but for what purpose the product has been developed, that functionality is met or not. For that, whatever testing we do, that we call it as functional testing. Suppose we have developed a pen for writing. If that functionality is met, then for that, whatever testing we do, that we call it as functional testing. The next one is interactive testing. Interactive testing is nothing but manual testing. The other name of manual testing, we call it as interactive testing. And the next one is integration testing. This integration testing, wait here. I'll say an example of uh, IRCTC or Abibus, whatever you want to take, you can take. So in Abibus or IRCTC, you will choose from and to destinations. Once you choose these two and you select the date of travel. So it once you select all these things and click on submit, they will show you the bus operators. The bus operators, and you will select the bus and seat, everything. Till here it is related to Abibus. This is Abibus. Once this is done, you have selected the bus operator from to and date, whatever operators it will show you. So till here it is Abibus. Once it is done, Once it is done, you will be navigated to payment. So this, until here it is related to Abibus. Once you select it, the payment is something which is different from Abibus. This is hold by some bank. So so for payment, if you select any bank, suppose we have selected at SBI bank for doing the payment. So here you will be navigated to SBI online banking. It is not related to Abibus. These both are different parties. Abibus is different and banking portal is different. Now what you are doing here, you are integrating these two. You are integrating the bus operator and the banking system. That means integration is nothing but you are connecting these two. Integration is nothing but connecting these two. So when you are trying to and connecting these two through some channel, so that they both can communicate. Once the payment is done, again you will be navigated to Abibus. So this type of testing, when you integrate two parties, two different parties, if they are working fine or not, that type of testing, we call it as integration testing. Is it clear, all of you? Okay. Now, the next one is load testing. What is load testing is, I could say IRCTC or TTD website. So whenever, so IRCTC, if you want to book a Tatkal ticket, I think around 11 a.m. in the morning, Tatkal will be open. At that time, huge number of users will try to access this IRCTC website. IRCTC website will be busy during the Tatkal time. So multiple users will be trying to access this IRCTC website. At that point of time, some people may get, some people, they may be able to book the ticket, some may not be able to book the ticket due to because multiple users are trying to access this website, and load on this website has been increased at that particular point of time. So load testing is nothing but at a particular point of time, how many users a particular website can hold, can tolerate. That type of testing, we call it as load testing. In order to test that, what we do is we create multiple users, virtual users, not real users, virtual users at different parts of the world. So from different, so we may create it from US, UK, India. So we create multiple virtual users across the world. Across the world, we create multiple users, and we try to access all these virtual users. We'll ask all the virtual users to access this IRCTC website at a particular point of time, all at a particular point of time. Suppose we fix at 10 a.m. in the morning, and all these users, we will ask them to access this IRCT website at that point of time. And we will test whether the website is, this application is able to hold these many particular users, this load or not. So whatever testing for that we do, we call it as load testing. Clear, all of you? At a particular point of time, for how many users the application is able to bear, that we call it as load testing. Non-functional testing. Non-functional testing is nothing but apart from functionality, whatever we test, that we call it as non-functional testing. Like accessibility testing, here we are not testing the functionality. We are testing whether the application is accessible by everyone or not. So accessibility is one of the type of non-functional testing. Even load testing is also, we are not testing the functionality. We are testing how many users are able to access this application at a particular point of time. So these are some examples of non-functional testing. Next is performance testing. Performance testing is nothing but when how the application is performing. Like when multiple users are trying to access it, even though if for all the people, suppose 200 users are trying to access this application at a particular point of time, at that point of time, how this application is performing. Or if internet is slow, how this is performing. Generally, performance testing is nothing but speed, reliable, how much we can rely on that application, is it genuine or not, stability. So when multiple people are trying to access it, how the website is working, application is working, is it stable or not stable. So scaling all these three, to scale all these three, we do the performance testing. Performance testing is nothing but what is the speed of the application, how much we can rely on that application, how many users the application can bear. In order to test all these things, that type of testing, we call it as performance testing. The next is regression testing. This we have already discussed. Regression testing is nothing but whenever there is an upgrade or change in the version of an existing product, if we are testing the entire system and the new feature, then we call it as regression testing. The next one is sanity testing. Suppose we have developed a product. We have developed a product and the product has been moved to, so this is production. We have developed a product and we have moved it to testing. During the testing, we found some issues. Sorry, bear with my writing. Some issues, like we have found some bugs. That means when the we got some requirements and whatever the product is developed, it is not in sync with the requirements. It is not in sync with the requirements. That means there is a deviation from the requirement. Suppose user asked me to develop a product in order to write in blue. Suppose they asked me to develop a product to write in blue color, but whatever it has been developed, they have developed a pen, but it is writing in black color. This is the requirement and this is the developed product. There is a deviation. There is a bug. The output should be in blue, but I'm getting in black. So that kind, so when during testing phase, it has been identified. So then what we do, we raise a bug. We'll tell to the development team, the product which you have developed has a bug. The user has asked, so the requirement is to write in blue, but it has been developed in black. It is writing in black. So what we do, we raise a bug against this development team. We raise a bug and assign back to the development team. So now what they do, they will fix that issue, they'll fix that bug, and again they will assign it back to the testing team. And now when we do the testing, everything is looking fine. Now the pen, whatever they have developed, it is writing in blue and it is in sync with the requirements. Everything is working fine. Then we move it to production. Sorry, this is development phase. This is the production. So whatever testing we do after bug fixing, the development team has fixed the bug, and whatever testing we do after bug fixing, we call it as sanity testing. Sanity testing is nothing but the testing that we do after bug fixing. The next one is smoke testing. What is smoke testing is, so once we want to move the, so after bug fixing, we have tested it, sanity testing has been done. And after that, we want to freeze the code freeze. That means once the code is freezed, nobody can do any change on that code because the system is perfect. Whatever requirements they have given, that has been achieved. So the code is now ready to move into production. The code is in freeze status. If it is in freeze status means nobody else can do the change on that code. Now what we have to do, so once this code has been frozen, then nobody can do the change and it is ready to move to the production. So whatever testing that we do at the time of code freezing, that means we will check like the versioning, what, so at the time of code freezing, whatever we do, like if we move this version to the production, will there be any severe effect, like the entire system, like we do that testing at high level. So once we move this to production, high level testing we do it here. If entire system is going to break, or is it okay if we move this version to production? So at high level, whatever testing we do at the time of code freeze, that we call it as smoke testing. Is it clear, all of you?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Unit testing. Unit testing is nothing but testing part by part. So the system, it has been developed using multiple units, like Abibus itself, if you take, Abibus is one segment. Payment section is different. So like this, if you are testing unit by unit, or if you take WhatsApp itself, messaging is one part, status is another part. Even using WhatsApp, we are able to make payments nowadays. So payments is another part. So you testing this part by part, these are different units of WhatsApp. So testing these units individually we are testing these segments. So that type of testings we call it as unit testing. Next, white box testing is nothing but testing end to end from beginning till the end. Whatever, suppose if I want to confirm that the product is working fine, I have 200 scenarios, testing scenarios, 200 testing scenarios. If I am doing all this 200 testing, all these 200 test cases, like covering, we are in this, we are covering function, both functional and non-functional, everything we are covering. That means UI testing we are covering, load testing we are covering, performance testing, everything if we are doing it here, then we call it as white box testing. End to end testing, that we call it as white box testing. So these are the different types of testings. I have mentioned a few of them which we frequently use. There may be other types of testings as well, like language testings, DB connection testing. So those are also there, but these are the frequently used ones which I have mentioned here. So language testing is nothing but UI. So most of the UIs will be in English, but few of the UIs may be in their regional languages. Like few applications, if you see, they'll be in Telugu or Hindi. So the UI will be in their regional languages. Some may be in Korean. So in their regional languages, that for those applications, whatever you test, that we call it as language testing. So DB testing is nothing but when you're connecting it to DB, when you want some information from database. So we do a connection to the database, if that connection is working fine or not. So that type of testing we call it as DB connection testing, DB testing. So there are different types of testings as well. So these are the most frequently used at the interview point of time. So I have listed these type of testings here. So anyone having doubt in this, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll move to the next slide. Shall I move to the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So there are a lot of other tools in the market, like for automating an application. There are a lot of other tools available in the market, like we have Quick Test Professional. So that is the major, like a big competitor for Selenium. So initially we had QTP only, Quick Test Professional, which is the automating tool. But why we need to go with Selenium itself? There are four reasons why we need to go for Selenium when compared with other automation tools. The first thing is it is open source. Open source is, it is freely available in the internet. You no need to pay any amount and get the licensed version. It is not licensed version. It is freely available in the internet. You can just download the jars and you can start working with Selenium. So that is the one major advantage of Selenium. Whereas QTP is licensed, you have to pay and use it. If you want to use QTP, you have to pay. So that is not open source. That is one major advantage with Selenium. It is open source, which is freely available in the market. Okay. The next one is it supports multiple browsers. That means if you want to run an application in Chrome browser, you can automate it. If you want to run it in Firefox, that you can do. So in all these browsers, it will support. So Selenium is supported in all these browsers because it will provide the drivers in all these browsers. We will see what this is in the upcoming classes. When we start discussing the Selenium, you will get to know these points. As of now, Selenium is supported in multiple browsers. It supports Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Opera, Safari. So all these browsers, so if the client asks you to test their application in Firefox, yes, you can do that because Selenium supports Firefox browser. If the client asks you to test your application in Opera, you are ready to do it because Selenium supports Opera browser. If they ask you, if the client asks you to test the application in Safari, you can do it because Selenium supports all these browsers. So that is the second main advantage of going with Selenium. The next one is it can work on multiple platforms. Like you can do your testing in Windows, you can do your testing in Apple, Linux, Android. So all these platforms, if the client asks you to test their application in any of this platform, you are ready to go because Selenium can support in all these platforms. It allows you to test your application in all these platforms. So that is also an added advantage why you need to go with Selenium. And then last one is you can write your language, you can write your code in any of these languages. You can use, if you are good at Java, you can go and use the Java language to drive the Selenium driver. Or if you are good at C# or Python or JavaScript or PHP or Ruby, if you know any one of this language, then you are ready to go and use this Selenium. So these are the main advantages why we select the Selenium when compared with other tools. The main advantage is it's open source and it supports all these things. It supports multiple browsers, multiple platforms, multiple languages. So it gives us a lot of feasibility why we need to go and use the Selenium when compared with other automation tools which are already available in the market. Now, what is Selenium? These are the advantages why we need to go for Selenium. Now, what is Selenium? Selenium is an API with group of tools and libraries that supports automation testing of web-based application. Now, first, let's see one by one, what is web-based application? So 1 minute. Web-based. So generally, there are two types of applications. The first one is web-based application. The next one is desktop applications. What is the difference between these two? Any application which needs internet to access them, then we call them as web-based applications. Any application that doesn't need internet to open them, then those kind of applications we call them as desktop applications. Suppose I am opening my folder. Let me open. This is my downloads folder, the folder in my desk, in my system, downloads folder. This, so whatever available in this my computer folder in Windows, if you want to see, if you are using the Windows application, Windows platform, so my computer, C drive, D drive, so all these does, if you want to open those applications, you don't need any internet. These we call it as desktop application. So just click, double click it, it is opening. So double click this one, it is opening. So there doesn't need any internet or anything. So these kind of applications, we call them as desktop application. But whereas few applications, if you want to apps, if you want to open them, they need the internet. So that kind of applications, we call them as web-based applications. Using Selenium, you can automate only Using Selenium, you can automate only web-based application. It will not support desktop applications. If you want to test any desktop application, Selenium will not help you. But it will allow you to do that by integrating with third party, that we will discuss going forward. But directly, Selenium will not allow you to automate the desktop applications. It will help you to automate only web-based applications. Clear all of you? What is the difference between web-based and desktop applications?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now
Yes, ma'am.
Selenium is an API. What is API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. Generally, interface means it is a channel, communication channel between two parties. When two parties want to communicate with each other, interface is a communication channel. Now, Selenium acts as an interface, application programming interface between client and browser. Whatever browser you want to run the application, to that browser, these two, like I want, I am automating my process, testing process. So here I'll write my code in any of the programming language. Like suppose we are currently learning about Java. So I'll write my code in Java. I'll write my instructions here. So this is my client part. Now this code has to drive my browser. Suppose I'm opening Chrome browser. This code, whatever I write here, it has to open my application in Chrome browser. And it has, suppose in Chrome, I want to open Gmail application. So this application I want to open in Chrome browser. For this, whatever code I want to write, I write it in Java at client side. Based on that code, whatever I have written at the client side in Java, using Selenium jars, that jars will have to communicate with the Chrome browser in my system and automatically open the browser and open this application, Gmail application. How it is going to happen? Because I am writing the code in Eclipse. I'll write my code in one particular tool, Eclipse. In Java language, I'm writing it. How come it is going to open my Chrome browser in my system? How it is identifying this code? This code is going and identifying my Chrome browser, and it is opening my Chrome browser in my system. And in that Chrome browser, it is going and opening this Gmail application. In order to do all these things, Selenium will act as an interface, programming interface. So it from my code, whatever I have written in Java, between that and the browser, it acts as an interface. That means communication channel. So whatever code I write here, it will be directed to the Chrome browser in my system. So I'll write my code here to open Gmail application. That will be sent to this Chrome browser in my system, and it will open that Gmail application. So in order to achieve this, Selenium acts as an interface, communication channel between the client and the browser. How it is going to happen, that we will, going forward, we will discuss how Selenium is helping us to open the browser automatically and do all these things, whatever. So based on the code, whatever we have written at the client side, how it is going and communicating with the browser, and how the browser is interacting with the Selenium, everything we will discuss it going forward. As of now, Selenium is nothing but an interface, programming interface, application and programming interface, API tool, which acts as a communication channel between the client and the browser. Okay. And for this communication, they have developed particular jar files. So in order to perform this communication, they have provided certain jar files. That also we will see what are these jar files that Selenium is coming up with in order to communicate with these two, that we will see. So now, as of now, what is Selenium is, it is an API with group of tools and libraries. What are these tools and libraries, that we will see when we start coding. So it helps, it supports in automation testing of web-based application. Only for web-based application, Selenium will be able to automate it. Using any of these languages, we can write our client-side code, and it will be able to support in, we can be able to run those automated scripts in all these browsers and in multiple platforms. So that is the reason why we go for Selenium. And what is Selenium means? It is an application programming interface which will come with multiple tools and libraries. These two, we will discuss about these tools and libraries going forward. So Selenium will be able to automate only web-based applications. Any desktop application, it cannot be directly automated using the Selenium. We'll see how we can do that as well. As of now, this is what Selenium means. Is it clear, all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. To the next one. What are different components of Selenium? So Selenium initial version, what is the initial version of, 1 second. Yes, sorry for that. So what are different components of Selenium is, the initial version, when they got the idea of automating a process, automating the testing process. So the first version of Selenium was Selenium IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. So Selenium IDE is the first version of Selenium. So they started as a plugin for Firefox. So if you open the Firefox browser in your system, if you go to settings you will have an option of adding plugins, any added features to your Firefox browser. So there you can, if you search with Selenium IDE, you will get this Selenium IDE plugin. So it came as a Firefox extension. They have developed it only for the Firefox browser. Only for Firefox browser, they developed this IDE, Selenium IDE. So how it was like record and playback. Even in your mobile, you'll have an option of recording any particular audio or video and playing it after recording. So the same way, Selenium IDE also, it came as record and playback. So once you start that plugin, I am not able to show you here. Okay. I'll try to show you here. Okay. Here in extensions and themes, if you go here, let me search with Selenium. If you see here, Selenium IDE, it is an extension for Firefox. If you add this one, if you add this to Firefox and start running it, it will allow you to record. So when you start this one, the recording will start. And when you stop this plugin, the recording will stop. So I'll start this plugin here. One second. Here, if you see that plugin Selenium IDE is already added. So once you start this, it will ask you to record a new test in new project or open an existing project, create a new project, close IDE. That means once you start recording, it will. So if you start recording, I'll give a name, test demo. It will ask you for URL. Start recording. So once you start recording, whatever you do here, that will be recorded. So I am now giving my email ID. So whatever actions, so here you can see here, Selenium IDE is recording. So whatever I give here, it will be recorded. Everything will be recorded. Now, if I want to stop it, I can go and stop it and play it. So Selenium IDE was like whatever flow you want to test. I want to test the login scenario. So whatever flow I want to test, I will record it. I will record it. And whenever the team comes and asks me to test the login flow, I'll just play that. I'll just play that. So once I start playing, what it will do, it will open the Gmail, and whatever name I have given at the time of recording, that username it will give, and whatever password I have entered during the time of recording, it will give that password, and whatever activity I have done during the recording, only that particular activity will be done. So this is what Selenium IDE is. It means it will start record. So it will allow you to record and play it. So record and playing. Record and playing. Only see at the time of recording, I have given this username. Only that username will be allowed when I'm playing it. I cannot change this username or I cannot change this password. So during the time of recording, whatever name I have given, username or password I have given, only those things will be captured. Only those things we will be able to test. So this is the main disadvantage of record and playback. Selenium IDE, it is the outdated version. Nobody is using this Selenium IDE now, because it will allow you only to test the application in Firefox browser, because it came as a plugin for Firefox only. And we will not be able to change the code, go inside and change the code, whatever. So when you record it, it will store the data somewhere. So the data which Selenium IDE stores is in the format of HTML. So we cannot go and modify it. So code optimization is very less in Selenium IDE. So it provides us basic features of automation, only record and playback. And moreover, it supports only Firefox. So that is the main drawback of Selenium IDE. So see here, if you see here, once I close that application, whatever it is showing is you open some URL, you gave this as username, and this is your password, whatever I have given. So after providing the username, I have clicked on next button. So it stores the data, whatever information I have done while recording, whatever activity I have done while recording, what it will be, the data will be stored here like this. And whenever you want to play this one, it will use this information only and do the testing. So you cannot go and modify this one or modify this password. So whatever you have done during the time of recording, only that part will be tested. So this is the main disadvantage of Selenium IDE. Okay, so this was the Selenium IDE. It was the first version of Selenium Firefox extension that supports record and playback. The main drawback was code optimization is not supported here. You cannot modify the code. So at the time of recording, whatever the data you have given, only that will be repeated when you want to do the testing. Suppose if I want to test the same application using different user, I cannot do that. And moreover, it is supported only by Firefox. So for these disadvantages, they came up with the next version of Selenium, which is Selenium RC. RC stands for remote control. Like a remote control, this version I can say like Selenium RC is like a remote control. Using the remote, you can how you can control any device like TV or AC or whatever it might be. So the same way, remote control was that powerful, using which you can test the entire application. You can automate the entire application using the remote control, Selenium remote control. End to end testing that you were able to test it using the Selenium RC. But the main drawback here was, in order to develop that remote control, the architecture was very complex. That was the main drawback in Selenium RC. So that is why they went to the next version of Selenium, which is the Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver is the current component which we are using it to develop the automation scripts. So what does this Selenium WebDriver does is, assume like a driver who is blindfolded. He cannot see anything. He cannot see anything. Based on the instructions you give, he will drive the application. Like suppose a car driver or a bus driver, whoever it might be, he is blindfolded. He cannot see anything. But based on instructions, whatever you give, like in any language like Java or C# or whatever it might be. So you say like 10 kilometers, go straight with this speed. After that, take a right turn, and finally you reach the destination. So like this, whatever instructions you give, based on that only the WebDriver will start working. It will drive the browser. The same way, a WebDriver also, he will take the instructions in any of the programming languages like Java, C#, Ruby, or Python, or whatever it might be. He will understand only these languages. Using this language, you want to guide the driver. You have to give the instructions properly to that driver, so that once I give the username, suppose in sign in page, if I give the username and password, the driver has to identify that username and password and provide those two entries over there and click on the sign in button. Then they have to be able to navigate to welcome homepage of that website. So these instructions, we have to give it properly in any of the programming language, and the WebDriver has to be able to identify those particular elements and provide the information, and finally reach the destination. Once the destination is reached, then our test case is passed. Suppose for valid username and password, if we click on the sign in button, then welcome page has to be landed. That is the positive scenario. For incorrect username or incorrect password, we should not be able to log into the welcome page. This is the failed scenario. For failed scenario, we should tell the driver to check if login page is, sorry, welcome page is displayed or not. If it is not displayed for failed scenario, then our test case is passed. So this is how we have to drive the driver based on the instructions in any of the programming language. That is what the WebDriver does here. It helps to drive the browser the way user wants it to be driven using multiple languages in different environments and different browsers. This is what we are going to study in the upcoming classes for Selenium. Selenium WebDriver is the component that we are going to use and start automating our application. Clear all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The next one is Selenium Grid. Suppose I have 200 test cases and the client wants me to test in all the browsers like Firefox, Chrome, IE. So in all these browsers, he want to test that 200 flows. Let me write it here. I have 200 test cases. All these test cases, sorry, the client is asking me to test in Chrome, Firefox, IE, Internet Explorer, and also in multiple platforms like in Windows, Linux, Android. And for all these 200 test cases, it will take a rough amount of 5 hours to get completed. If I run first, if I run them serially, like first for Chrome, then once Chrome is completed, I want to run it in Firefox, then IE, it will take 15 hours. And also in multiple platforms, I have to do it. So 15, 15, 15, it will take 45 hours. Okay, so here a lot of time is consumed. So what they have come up is Selenium Grid. Grid will allow you to run all your test cases parallelly in multiple browsers and multiple platforms. So parallelly, you can run it in Chrome, Firefox, IE, and also in multiple platforms in Windows, in Linux, and Android. Parallelly, you can run all these test cases.
ఏమైంది బొబ్బ వచ్చింది ఇక్కడ వేడి చేసింది
Hello. Okay, so parallelly, it will allow you to run all your test cases so that your time consumption will be reduced. So 45 hours will be reduced definitely. So when you run the test cases parallelly using the grid, it will not be definitely 40, it will not take 45 hours definitely. It will be less than 45 hours. And also, so this is the time reduction thing that they have developed, Selenium Grid, which will help you to run all your test cases parallelly across multiple platforms and multiple browsers. This is the next component of Selenium, which is the Selenium Grid. It will help you to run parallel execution of the test scripts in multiple browsers and platforms. The next component is Selenium Android and APM. These are the components developed for automating the mobile applications. Mobile applications, if you want to automate it, you will be using the Selenium Android for Android mobiles and APM for iOS mobiles, Apple mobiles. So these are the various components of Selenium, Selenium IDE, Selenium RC, WebDriver, Grid, Selenium Android, and APM. Mostly we'll be focusing on WebDriver itself. WebDriver, this is going to come to do all our tasks. 90% of our task will be done with this Selenium WebDriver. And if you want to run the test cases in parallel, we are going to use this grid, but grid is not that successful. The results are not that accurate using the grid, but using the WebDriver itself, we can do the parallel testing as well. That we will see how we can do it. parallelly how we can run the test cases and all those things we will see using the WebDriver itself. Grid is not stable as of now. That's the latest component which needs to be worked till, because the if you run the test cases parallelly in grid, the results are not that stable. So we go with WebDriver only in order to run the test cases in parallel also. We'll see how we can do all those things going forward. And the next one is WebDriver architecture, how WebDriver is designed. So here, whatever program we write, whatever instructions we write, that will be the client side program. We can use Java language or C Sharp, Python, whatever language we want to use. We can use it for writing the scripts. That means we are writing the instructions for WebDriver here, how it has to drive the browser. So this part will be the client part, and WebDriver, which is the server, which acts as an interface, which here the Selenium part comes here. It will act as an interface between the client and the browsers. So for client and browsers, so here WebDriver will come into picture. For each browser, we will have one driver. That means, let me write it. We have multiple browsers, right? So Chrome browser we have, Firefox we have, IE, Safari, like this we have multiple types of browsers. For each and every browser, Selenium provides one driver for it. In order to run the application in Chrome, Selenium provides Chrome driver. To run the application in Firefox, Selenium provides Firefox driver. To run an application in IE, it provides IE driver. For Safari, it provides Safari driver. Chrome driver cannot go and run an application in Firefox browser or IE browser or Safari browser. So Chrome driver can run an application in Chrome browser only. It provides different browsers for different drivers for different browsers. Chrome driver cannot go and run the application in Firefox or IE or Safari. Firefox driver cannot go and run in Chrome or IE or Safari. So for one browser, it has provided one driver. So the Selenium has taken care for it. So Chrome driver can drive the application in Chrome browser. Firefox driver can drive the application in Firefox browser. So like this, for each and every browser, Selenium has provided one particular driver. So those are the executable web drivers. So if we want to run an application in Chrome browser, automatically we have to initiate the Chrome driver. Chrome driver will be initiated, and based on the instructions, whatever we have written here, this web driver will go and drive the Chrome browser. Suppose if I want to run the application in Firefox browser, appropriately that particular web driver, Firefox web driver, will run the application in the Firefox browser. So that part will be taken care here at the server side. This is the server Selenium interface, which acts as an interface between the client and the browser. For this communication, so WebDriver and browser, the WebDriver and browser, whatever here Selenium is providing the web driver, and this is the browser. Between these two, the communication between these two, how the driver is going to communicate with the browser, that will be taken care by the Selenium. We are not bothered about it. How this driver is going and communicating with the browser, that we are not bothered about it. That is the internal thing that is going to happen. But the communication between the programming language, what we are writing here, and how it is getting communicated with the web drivers, that we have to take care. Like in code, let me take it in one. Here, this is the client. This is the client part. We are writing in programming language all the instructions, like in Java, we are writing the instructions. whatever based on our instructions, WebDriver has to be initiated. WebDriver has to be initiated, and this is going to drive the browser. How this WebDriver is going to communicate with the browser, that we are not bothered about it. So we can ignore this part, but based on our instructions, how this WebDriver is going to get initiated, how this Selenium is identifying the instructions appropriately and initiating that particular driver, that we have to, how it is going to communicate with, how the communication is happening between these two, that we have to understand. Here, there are two ways of communication. One is HTTP request using JSON wire protocol. The other one is W3C protocols. What is a protocol? Protocol is nothing but rules. Rules. What are these rules? Now I am writing the instructions in Java, and Selenium cannot understand this language. Selenium cannot understand this Java language. Suppose I can speak Telugu, the other person cannot understand this language, Telugu. Telugu language is not understandable by the other person. Myself is, I am communicating with the person who doesn't know the language Telugu. Suppose North Indian or any person. He doesn't know Telugu and I am trying to communicate with that person in Telugu. Now I have to, in between, there should be a person, mediator, who can translate this Telugu into a language which is understandable by this person, North Indian person. Suppose he understands English or Hindi. In between, there has to be a mediator who can convert this language to other language. Selenium cannot understand this language, Java language. It has to be converted. There has to be a mediator who can convert this language to a language which is understandable by this Selenium WebDriver. That conversion can be done by two different persons. The first one is JSON wire. The next one is W3C. Initially, they used JSON wire mediator for converting this Java instructions into Selenium WebDriver understandable instructions. But this is not the standard language, standard conversion, because see, if W3C is the universally accepted language. W3C stands for World Wide Web Consortium. This is universally accepted one. This is regional one. So initially what they have done is they used JSON wire for converting this Java instructions into the instructions which are understandable by the Selenium WebDriver. That we called as Selenium version 3. Sorry for that. One second. Selenium IDE is the first version. We call it as Selenium 1. RC is the second version. We call it as Selenium 2. Selenium WebDriver, we call it as Selenium 3. So when we used JSON wire protocol, that version we called as Selenium 3 version, where the mediator was JSON wire protocol, which converts the Java into Selenium WebDriver understandable instructions. But that was not universally accepted. It was not universally, that means it is not acceptable by all the people. So what they have done is they have used W3C rules, W3C protocols, which are universal. These rules are accepted universally. That means if you want to communicate with this Selenium WebDriver, you have to follow these rules. Those rules are set up which are accepted universally. W3C, World Wide Web Consortium. So this JSON wire protocol is no more in existence. Now we are using Selenium 4, which uses W3C standards, W3C protocols for communication between the client and the Selenium WebDriver. Even this also we no need to bother. Just we need to know what is the thing that is happening between the client and the WebDriver. So we are using these protocols for communicating between the two different parties which doesn't understand each other's language. Selenium WebDriver's language cannot be understandable by the client, and client's Java programming language cannot be understandable by the Selenium WebDriver. In order that these two have to communicate means they have to use certain mediator, which is JSON wire protocols or W3C standard protocols. So initially they used JSON wire protocol, but that is not the standard one. So they have moved to W3C standards, which is the standard one currently which is in use. Now we are using Selenium 4. Selenium 4 is the version that we are using currently. This is the WebDriver architecture. How it is going to communicate, no need to bother about it. Just understand that how these two are communicating using the W3C protocols. This is the WebDriver architecture. Any doubts till now?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
That's all for today. This is the brief introduction on Selenium and why we need to go for Selenium. What are the different things that we need to, before going to Selenium automation, what are the basic things that we need to know? These are the things that we need to know. And from tomorrow, we'll start with the basics of Java. There are other languages as well, like C#, Python, and Ruby. Other languages are also supported by Selenium. But why we go with the Java is Selenium with Java is the hot combination that majority of the projects that they use it. So we use Selenium with Java only. From tomorrow, we'll start with basics of Java. What and all, we will not go in deep into the Java concepts. Whatever are needed for our Selenium automation, only those concepts we'll try to cover. And after that, we'll jump into Selenium concepts. That's all from my side. If you have any doubts, you can ask me.
If no queries, then we will wind up the session. Any queries?
No, sir, but can we get the recorded video of this session?
Yes, yes, we will upload into the drive and we will share the link in the group.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, madam, for your time. Yeah, thank you all.
All of you. We'll meet at the same time tomorrow, 6:30, and we'll start with basics of Java.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you all.
Okay.